Hey, good morning. We're looking at indigenization next in the next kind of section of this instructional skills workshop, and I'm looking forward to getting into this with you all. I wanted to set it up and introduce it with this image and this quote. This quote is on the BC legislature by Eddie Charlie, a survivor of residential schools here in BC. Says reconciliation should not be about an apology, nor should it be like a holiday or a birthday that we have a ceremony when we have a ceremony once a year. Reconciliation, however, should be like a river, continuous and always making changes. And I wanted to share a little bit about my practice to kind of set up this week and this discussion and the work we're doing here. And yeah, I'll tell you, I'll show you why in a moment, or I'll discuss those things in a moment because our goal here as we discuss indigenization is to think about what you're learning, what you would like to learn more about, and how you might like to apply it as you teach your next course. And this is kind of broadly the way we're framing all of these pedagogical principles we're overlaying, not in a prescriptive fashion, but and to hopefully kind of spark some curiosity within you about, what's next and what's coming and how might I explore this myself. So again, with that in mind, I'll share my own story a little bit about how these things have kind of taken shape and kind of woven together as I've learned about, indigenization, as I've learned about truth and reconciliation, about decolonization, and kind of what all of it looks like and means to me, and makes how I make sense of it. For me, it's about these broad things, this personal learning, this professional learning about what's happening in education, what has happened in education, and then this, practical learning of what does it look like in my practice? How does all that translate? And as I thought about these things for us today, there's some deep questions that I'm now working with and wrestling with, or kind of some themes that I've begun exploring more and more. Questions of like whose voices, am I making space for in the classroom and in the dialogue we have and in the work we're doing, and how am I inviting and honoring those voices? And similarly, whose work, right? Whose work are we representing? Am I representing? Am I choosing to use or choosing not to use as part of the breadth of knowledge and body of knowledge I present and I share as I teach? I'm also asking there in the middle, what does learning look like? What are the ways I'm expecting students to demonstrate their learning? What are the things I'm expecting them to do to learn? And I think within all of that and all of those kind of first two sections, for me, this personal, professional, practical learning has also looked like a reflection on, what are my biases that I bring to the conversation? What are my biases that I bring to my work? Because of my learning experience and because of the areas where I've had success and probably even success with the students and other learners and other educators I work with, how does it reinforce some of those biases? And how can I kind of intentionally unlearn some of those learnings that may not be entirely respective of the diversity of people we work with and serve or want to work with and serve? And all of that kind of sets up finally that broader question of how can learning help communities thrive? How can I be about learning that does that? Not just for the individual or individuals we work with, but for those they will go on to work with, and for the communities they will go on to work in, and for the communities our learning is situated in. So these are some of my own kind of questions I've been exploring, and are symbolic of some of the themes and ways that I've been doing some learning within this as I've developed professionally myself. So with those in mind, I kind of share all that to frame this week's learning and this week's conversation that I've selected three resources for you and given you the choice to take any direction with any of the three, or to choose any of the three first and then respond with a discussion prompt related to the specific resource you've chosen. First, the first and the last are from two different guides in a pulling together series. It's a great series to get to know if you haven't seen this series of BC made resources for educators. The first kind of is from their Foundations Guide, which is a guide intended primarily to address kind of the truth side of truth and reconciliation, what has happened and what do we need to know about BC's history as we seek to be part of reconciliation, again like a river that supports that thriving holistic health of our region. The third, then, since I mentioned it as well, is from another guide in that Pulling Together series, but this one's intended for curriculum developers. And part of the work you're doing is you design a course, and as you select activities for a course and you select assessments for a course, is curriculum development type work. So this guide sets up Indigenous theories of knowledge, that is epistemology, and Indigenous methods of practice of teaching, which is pedagogy. And it presents some kind of broad themes in terms of epistemology and pedagogy that are common across a number of Indigenous groups, not characteristic of everyone. They're, of course, diverse in different nations and groups and individuals, but some themes that are useful to understand. And then the middle resource here, History of Residential Schools by the Honorable Murray Sinclair, who is chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I believe, and on one of the authors of the calls to action, kind of responding to and acknowledging the experiences of residential school survivors. So all fantastic resources to get to know in time, but your challenge next is to choose one to sit with and work with, and then share kind of what you're learning, what you can take from it. Look forward to hearing what you have to share and learning with you as we go here. Thanks. Cheers.